For some who say ghosts haunt their lives, relief comes when the spirit leaves or the victims depart. For others, no house can be a home. For these families, there is no respite and no escape from the spirits of the unexplained. A painful divorce in 1968 left Beth alone with a small child and little money. She was rebuilding her life when she met Bob Batesel a few years later. They fell in love, got married, and Bob adopted Beth's daughter, Leah. In 1971, when the Batesels moved into this two-family house in New Brunswick, New Jersey, the young family's newfound happiness would be fleeting. Strange events began happening in the house. At first, Bob and Beth dismissed the odd activity. Lamps swinging, doors opening and closing, objects appearing in the wrong places. Then they were forced to confront the terror trapped in the walls of their new home. The pungent smell of rotting flowers wafted throughout the rooms. Temperatures supposedly rose to sweltering levels for no apparent reason. They began to witness shocking sights. Knives, forks, and baby bottles darted about the house, making them fear for their lives.
I felt very scared. Unsafe. Undermined. You didn't know what was coming next, and that's a very undermining feeling of never knowing that the ground or the rug is being pulled out from under you. So you didn't know what to expect, so you were always aware. So the stress level was very high.
The ghastly events escalated. The Batesels claimed they were attacked by small objects hurled about the house by unseen forces.
I had some friends over for lunch, and just out of nowhere, the bathtub stopper, a round bathtub stopper, just came flying between two of us that were seated at the table as though someone just threw it.
The moving objects became even more threatening. One night, Bob and Beth were paralyzed with fear as they watched a lit cigarette drift down from the ceiling.
We just didn't know what to do because we didn't know whether to reach out and grab it, if someone were actually holding it that we just didn't see. If it hit the floor, would it start a fire? We just didn't know what to do.
The enormous stress from incidents like this forced Beth, who had never believed in ghosts, to confront what seemed very much like a haunting. Word of the Batesels' ghost spread, and a spiritual group interested in paranormal activities asked to conduct a seance in their home. Bob and Beth, at a loss for an alternative, agreed.
We felt we were drowning in a sea of phenomena that we could not explain. We had never had this before, we didn't know anything about it at the time, and we needed help.
The group gathered with Beth and Bob around the dining room table. They closed their eyes and joined hands. When the psychic called out to the spirits, the ghost began to speak through her. Beth secretly taped the proceedings.
Can you tell us your name?
It's my land. And you get out.
Well, if we could investigate to see if it is your land, maybe we would get out, but you'll have to help us and tell us what your name is.
My name is George Baxter.
George Baxter?
This land belonged to me. I bought it in the year 1872. Now you look that up, mister.
We will, George.
The next day, Beth went to the New Brunswick Library to research the history of the house. She discovered that George Baxter had bought the land in 1872. Beth was stunned, but Bob remained skeptical until a few weeks later, when they found threats written in lipstick and marker on walls and mirrors. Now, Bob was certain that his house was haunted. The angry ghost became brazen, scribbling harrowing messages to the family. What you see here are the actual notes that Bob claims were written by the ghost. As the alleged hauntings escalated, the Batesels could no longer keep their 8-year-old daughter safe from the ghost.
I knew something was going on. You'd have to be an idiot not to know something was going on when on your 8th birthday you wake up in the morning and there are red crosses all over the walls and the words "Go Dead" written.
In 1972, Beth gave birth to their second daughter, Lisa. The threat to both children loomed larger. According to Leah Batesel, by that time, the ghost had already done irreparable damage to her childhood.
It is a hell house. It's a house from hell. As far as I'm concerned, that house destroyed what prior to moving in there was a normal 4-year-old girl. I hate that house.
Beth grew to hate the house too. She knew her daughters were frightened, and she felt that she had no way to protect them.
When you touch my child, that's the line. And that's what happened. There were a number of incidents, a couple in particular that were very, very focused on our children, and we felt that that was it and we had to leave.
Unwilling to do battle with their ghost any longer, the Batesels packed up all of their belongings and moved, certain they were leaving the violent spirit behind. Their desperate attempt to escape only took them deeper into the unexplained. Bob and Beth Batesel and their 2 young daughters fled their home in New Brunswick, New Jersey, believing that they were escaping the terror of the ghost that haunted them there. For 4 years, the Batesels lived in this house where they were harassed almost daily by ghostly threats. Now they were running from the unexplained, in search of a more peaceful abode. The Batesels moved to an apartment in Clinton, New Jersey. The persistent ghost followed and only became more hostile. The Batesels claimed that an unseen force shoved Beth, Bob, and Leah down the stairs. They moved again. This time, they moved further away to Flemington, New Jersey. They had barely finished unpacking when one morning, to Beth's horror, she found a butcher knife impaled in the kitchen door frame. She knew then they had not eluded the vicious spirit.
Once again, we moved into a new place, hoping that the phenomena was over and it would have stayed far behind us and we could just pick up where we always were, trying to be a normal family.
From 1971 to 1985, Bob and Beth moved 11 times, and their lives were anything but normal.
We lost friends because we couldn't explain anything, and everybody was looking for an explanation. Everybody would blame us. It's happening to you, therefore, it's your fault.
With no one to turn to, they banded together to battle their demons. They built their last house from the ground up in Lake Ariel, Pennsylvania, hoping the fresh start would finally eradicate the ghost. It didn't. The first weekend after moving into the Lake Ariel home, a ghost left the Batesels a most horrifying welcome. It was well past midnight when the Batesels were startled out of bed by hysterical crying. Rushing to their daughter's room, the Batesels found her terrified, screaming that her cat was hanging by its neck from the doorway, with its eyes gouged out. The Batesels saw nothing. This ghost-like apparition had disappeared. Several nights later, the Batesels were again startled out of their sleep as glass and picture frames hung in the living room spontaneously exploded, shattering glass throughout the house.
It's really difficult to describe how you feel when you're in the middle of a whirlwind. But we have stopped asking why because we're too busy dealing and living with it.
Most reports of hauntings link the ghost to a place. The Batesels believe that in their case, ghosts come to them.
We have come to understand that there are hauntings which are attached to a particular place and remain. And then there are hauntings that seem to be the people. The people are haunted, not the place. So no matter where the people go, it doesn't matter. They will still be haunted. From everything that has been done and tested and what we've been told, I seem to have some kind of presence. I am some kind of magnet that seems to attract these spiritual things.
The Batesels, physically and emotionally exhausted, say they can no longer try to escape the ghost. They remain in their Lake Ariel home, resigned to its hauntings, and uneasy about what may lie ahead. Do the Batesels somehow attract hauntings and spirits wherever they live? Or do they create their own demons? For scientists like Nobel Prize-winning physicist Leon